Hello and welcome to another episode of Cavell Cloud Conversations. No Patrick today, but I am joined by Jim McGarry and Ross Jack from Dialpad. Hello to both of you.
Hello, Finbarr. Good to have you. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for being aboard, yes.
Now, for the people on the podcast who aren't familiar either with yourselves or with Dialpad, I think it might be a good idea just to do a little bit of introduction. So, Jim, why don't you take us off?
Yeah, happy to do it. Thanks, Finbarr. So my name is Jim McGarry. I am Dialpad's channel chief, SVP of channel sales, if you want to make it more formal or informal on the other side. No, my accent is not from the UK or anywhere in Europe. I am an American. I've spent the last 20 plus years inside of the communications industry and have been over at Dialpad for the last 5.5 months running global channel sales. So very excited to be here. Very excited to talk to you, Finbarr, and talk to your base out there.
Brilliant.
Hello all, my name is Ross Jack. I am the other half of this double act for Dialpad, and I am head of channel for EMEA. I've been in the industry for over 30 years and predominantly at Dialpad now for 18 months. Seen a lot of growth within that time while I've been here at Dialpad, and looking forward to speaking more around that with Finbarr today.
Brilliant. So, I mean, obviously, I'm very familiar with Dialpad, and we were only speaking last week. But I guess for the people listening who are less familiar with the company, I mean, what's the elevator pitch? What's the core takeaway?
Yeah, I think Finbarr, it's great, and thank you for that. And in this space, right? We've Ross and I have both come from PBX platforms, PBX backgrounds, communications backgrounds, and what's been interesting over the course of the last several years is that when you look at the platform in total, as customers have continued to make those migrations from legacy onsite into cloud. Cloud telephony obviously was the early path into that. Cloud contact center has continued to be on the rise. I mean, we saw some great stats when we were at Cavell of what we're continuing to see: agent usage, moving to cloud, continuing to grow. Dialpad has been a communications platform from UCaaS through CCaaS. We're going to talk a little bit about Agentic AI today because of where the market is moving towards. For the last 11 years, our foundation was built in telephony, grew through the UI and the end user experience, evolved into a customer experience platform that is really leading the way and paving the way for a communications platform to be able to have agentic AI at its core, decision making, task based management, all of the things that we expect AI to do and continue to grow. We've actually been talking about that for the last 6 years at this point. So it's exciting for us to be able to have this conversation with you because a lot of folks may have thought about Dialpad from a legacy UCaaS platform perspective, some inside of the contact center, but really where the evolution is going to is to more task-based conversations inside of agentic AI as well.
I mean, you've put a lot of keywords out there now, so we might stop and
buzzwords.
Start to sort of unpack a little bit. But I think if we dial back to sort of this core proposition, now a lot of the people who listen to this podcast will be familiar with the communications space, but I think it's worth reiterating that we're in this point of transition where a lot of companies who have existed in the business communications space for a very long time are now starting to broaden out their platform, build new capabilities, not just to serve that core business communication function, but then also to serve things like customer experience, things like AI, and those kind of things. So that sort of journey, I think you'd agree, is what we're talking about for Dialpad as well.
Absolutely. I think it's and quite frankly, I think it's the biggest conversation and the biggest topic in our industry as a whole. We saw that evolution, right? Kind of where I started from the IP PBXs moving into cloud, same thing in contact center, continuing to focus on customer experience. But as where we are going and where we're seeing the market conversation starting to take us is this next transition into how we're leveraging AI, specifically agentic, for better customer experience, better outcomes for our agents, and what do we do with that human touch to enhance with agentic AI as well. So you're absolutely right. That is the conversation, and I think everybody's kind of in that boat right now of trying to identify and figure that out. And the piece that when we talk about the Dialpad platform, that one of the elements that makes us incredibly unique is that end to end, from UCaaS telephony all the way through Agentic, every single tool is built by us. It is our platform, and that's also a unique differentiator for us too.
So I think that there's two things to talk about there. I mean, the first thing is, like, there's a big debate in the industry, I think, as to whether this push towards integrated communications into AI in a platform, as you say, is driven by the vendors who
Right.
obviously want to expand their reach,
Sure.
or if it's something that partners should be driving and should get really excited about. I think that's probably an interesting point of discussion. So, if you're a partner listening to this, I think maybe don't sell me, because I don't like the sales pitches so much, but like, is Dialpad pushing this, or should partners be the ones saying, no, I need to get on this train or it's going to be too late? I think that's a good question.
Yeah, I don't think we're in a too late scenario for the train ride, right? To hop on. I think we're getting into the station. I think early leaders are being defined. And when we consider agentic, there are a lot of agentic vendors that are out there today who have focused their business on that. We often refer to that as, good, bad, or indifferent standalone agentic, right? That's what they focus on. That's where they work into the space. That's where their integration of into other platforms also exists, which is an important tool. And I don't think anyone can stand out here and say today that all of the efforts that have been made by companies who are leading in agentic are doing anything. It's a great product. They've built their platform. They've used all of their industry know-how. They've used their skill sets to deliver an agentic platform that's going to integrate into what the customer has today. And I think there is a lot of value into that standalone solution. Where Dialpad makes ourselves unique is when you have that customer who, one, obviously the easy conversation is one that is already using the product and the platform and is adding on agentic. That's where we're seeing a lot of growth today, because that's an easier conversation, because then at that point you don't have to worry about building up a new model, building up, or looking for a new vendor from an agentic standalone standpoint. And there's a lot of customers who are looking to make those transitions. They're looking to elevate what their customer experience looks like from a contact center perspective. And that's really the area in which we play, is when somebody is evaluating contact center, looking to add those agentic workflows in there. Well, that's where Dialpad creates a unique proposition from that standpoint. So hopefully that wasn't too salesy for you, but that is definitely, standalone and platform. There's a lot more standalone providers out there today than there are true platform vendors who are taking it all the way through.
Yeah, and I think a lot of partners are used to that motion of, this is the best at that, this is the best at this, I'm going to make them work together.
Absolutely.
And that's where they sort of define their proposition. But we're getting into this idea that actually maybe the best way to approach more difficult solutions and AI and things like that is actually to take a more integrated platform. I don't know, Ross, do you want to chime in on that? I mean, you speak to a lot of partners on the road in terms of what they're looking for from a platform versus a sort of solo approach.
No, I appreciate the question, Finbarr. And I think Jim's kind of hit the nail on the head there a little bit. Especially from the EMEA standpoint, what we're seeing, and most people are saying from a global perspective, the standalone has been there a little bit longer. They've obviously come in and had that attempt to see where they sit and how that plays. But I think the combination solution is really where the channel is looking to elevate itself from that perspective, because you're able to integrate a lot more into other ecosystems and how that operates. Instead of having multiple things, you're now obviously reducing down that footprint. But it also gives you the element of, which is where we sit, is the element of able to action upon those results that come across. If you see some of the standalone elements to it, it's very much around informational pieces may come across, and you'll still need then to adjust other things within your ecosystem. to have that within the platform that we provide where, and I'm sure Jim will touch on it at some point in regards to some of our features from a skill mining perspective, we can actually action those things as the agentic AI is actually finding them moving forward. And that for a channel partner is really key. So not only are they able to aid and assist their end customers, but they can also then action and move forward with relative ease as well.
Okay. I think it's time to address the agentic word. We've used it a bit. I'm sure people listening to this podcast have their own idea of what agentic means, but it is probably worth just unpacking it a bit so that they're like, well, we've heard you talk about it. I think I know what it means. But actually, what does it mean from a Dialpad perspective? What is it bringing that you couldn't do before, for example?
Yeah, this part I love, and thanks for asking the question, Finbarr. We probably should have started there because it even came up at the CX Summit a little bit. When we say AI, we very often talk about broad AI, and more often than not, the 90+% of people. That's just a random number I made up, by the way. But it seems to lend into conversations when people are thinking about AI. They think about what I would refer to, and I think as the market would refer to as Gen AI, right? Generational
Yeah.
AI. A lot of us from a consumer product perspective of, using ChatGPT, using Claude, the ask a question and generate a response back. That's a lot of generative AI. That's the kind of the first step into what AI had delivered and what it had done. Then we got into the execution layer as well of being able to leverage AI with systems and tools that are in place today to make decisions or help us calculate data or consume data and synthesize it down to something that's more digestible. Where Agentic goes is actually that next level because it takes the conversational intelligence, it takes the synthesis of everything that's been happening inside of a company or inside of the tools that it's integrated into, and looks at making task-based decisions. How do I make a decision in the agentic world that is actually driven, it's task-based, it allows us to have an action that is associated with it, that the AI drives that behavior. And that's what really starts evolving and changing the conversation with a contact center agent, let's say, who can leverage the agentic AI workflows that are built to improve their human performance. Because I do think, when you start talking about agentic, you start talking about AI making decisions and going through a workflow to make tasks, people start getting concerned about what happens to the human element of that. And it's truly our principle and our philosophy. And I think most vendors would say the same thing, is that we're not looking to use this tool to replace what a human interaction looks like. We're only trying to elevate that experience to make for a better customer experience and a better employee experience when you're driving those tasks.
I think there's two very interesting things there. I mean, I think just to unpack this definition of agentic a little bit more, I mean, if AI before would give you an answer, say, hey, that's really good, that's really interesting, let's talk about that, it doesn't go and do things. And really, when we're talking about agentic, we're talking about that step towards, let's build this piece of automation that comprehends and then acts on those comprehensions in a way that a human being would do. And I think that's kind of important, is, you would normally have someone who would go and book that or do that or open that system and fill in that data or, use that data to make a determination. And instead we're saying, well, actually, agentic lets the AI make the decision, change something, route something, and actually take an action on behalf of both the customer and the consumer in the other way. But I think it's really interesting. I mean, from a Cavell perspective, you said, we're not looking to reduce the workforce and the headcount. And I know certainly that from the forecast that I make, the headcount of the industry is still going up. And I think that's a part of dissonance that it is worth focusing on every time. And whenever I have a podcast on this topic, it always ends up coming up because there's a lot of discussion from finance companies and people like that and CFOs looking to reduce headcount, get that cost over. And the fact is that we have a lot of very skilled human beings in the contact center space who we're not racing to get rid of because
No.
they're expensive and they're valuable. But there is that question of, they're so expensive and so valuable that why don't we give them more time to do and work on things that we'd like them to work on?
Well, what's interesting about that conversation, Finbar, is that if you think about, when we say agentic, right? We can get to a certain point that we have to give the agentic the guardrails of where it's functioning, how it's functioning, what tasks are it's going to do, where are we driving that, right? Where are we driving that conversation? Because a lot of times, people automatically think it's not going to be able to make the same conversational components that a human would. But what it can drive, we use this all the time in healthcare and finance. And we all have a personal experience somewhere along the line where I input my data, I give you my number, I do all these things, and then I get to a human and I got to repeat the whole thing. And
Yep,
whether or not,
exactly.
whether or not we think that's gone away or gone to the background, it still exists today. And what the agentic piece has really elevated is what's that handoff process look like? How can I capture? How can I trust that data? How can I secure that data? How can I make a better experience for the end user, who's ultimately the agent on the other side, to be able to consume that and then help the customer to make a better decision? That just means shorter time to resolution, better customer experience on that end. It doesn't mean it's a replacement of that, right? We're trying to make everybody's job a little bit easier and make it more consumable for the end user as well.
Exactly. I mean, ultimately, nothing is more frustrating to an agent to have a customer come through who's had a long conversation with a form or a chatbot, and then, reaches an agent who has no idea that any of that conversation happened
That's
at
right.
all. Uh, I mean, that's just solving a core basic problem of the customer service industry that has been around there for a while, which is how do we actually gather, control, and smooth out the customer journey. Ross, I thought it'd be interesting. So we had our Cavell Customer Experience Summit last week. You both attended. I think there were about 380 other attendees. It's a fantastic event. I loved it. First one we've done. But you guys also brought an announcement to the table there, which, thank you for announcing that. But I think there was a new partner program or something that had been made available. Maybe you want to
Yes,
give us the details about that.
I'm pleased you bring that up, especially for myself, because it's very much something that's been close to my heart since I joined Dialpad, and that's to be able to release something a little bit different for our channel community. Wholesale resale is something the EMEA space has always leveraged and how it operates with vendors. But for us in particular, it's around how we can actually help our channel leverage the agentic and the AI element for their own resale purposes. So it's, as Jim mentioned, around what our products and portfolio sits and how we're able to offer those services is also key for us as a vendor, and how the channel can actually monetize that moving forward. And that comes in kind of two key areas. One of them is kind of giving power back to the channel partners, if you will. So we've gone through a phase, I think everyone would agree that it's from the UCaaS, CCaaS pace, it got to more of a seat per price point and not really more kind of architecture and solution design. So we're able now to give that back to the channel regards to how our platform operates, and to go back into that USP piece. How does their value add sit around our services, and what does that operate? But also the monetization of it. And Jim was very eloquent, a lot better than me, as I lost my voice from last week, which I'm glad I'm not saying that this week, but was able to eloquently say how that we are going to be able to monetize that for the channel, not just on a one-off perspective, but as that journey grows. Because for every agentic project that comes forward, we are seeing much more success as it's starting small and growing bigger as it goes along. And we're very proud to be able to have that put forward for our channel today.
And I mean, for people listening who've sort of, they hear new reseller program. I mean, where do they find more information? How do they get involved with that?
So I'm going to pick on another bold statement that myself and Jim mentioned when we was on stage, and I do believe that once we have those conversations with the channel partners in particular, and they can bring those inquiries directly to myself. We are offering some of the highest returns within the channel programs today, and both me and Jim have articulated again on this piece how long we've been in the industry. We've both come from different vendors, and where that sits, we kind of know what sits within the space. We feel very confident that our rates that we're offering won't be beaten in the marketplace. But to answer your question there in a little bit more detail, Finbarr, please get anyone that's interested to reach out to myself directly, and we'll be able to go through what our platform looks like, what the channel program looks like, and the benefits of them working with us directly.
And one of the things that stands out the most to me, and I think, from the partners I go and speak to, and I know definitely some of the people I know listen to this podcast, is there is a lot of confusion at the moment in terms of this journey from okay, I'm selling communication services, you know, I know what that looks like. I know what that costs. I know how much money I'm going to make from it. And that part of the pressure that someone like Dialpad is feeling probably is to rationalize that cost basis, the margin basis, the value of not only your traditional products in the face of the changing landscape, but then also the AI products that now your partners have to take to market. So would
Yes.
you say that that's a challenge that a lot of people are facing?
I would say if you was to generalize it, then yes, that will be that challenge. But I
Okay.
think again, if we go through just regurgitating what we did at the CX event, and you're right there, just going off piece a little bit. Finbarr was a great event. I look forward to you doing that
Thank
again
you.
next year
Yes.
from the first one to be in the second one, and obviously Dialpad will be there as well. But we're not just around sitting there saying we have a program and here it is. You know, we're actually
Hmm.
invested within that channel. For example, come July, we're actually having 2 programs for our channel partners that come into our offices, going through deployment, install and support as one part of that, but also going through, to your point there around the agentic piece. What does it actually mean for the channel partner? How can they monetize it? We're actually giving them training programs and features and functions to be able to walk away from that and kind of go,
Hmm.
I can understand how I can build it together, also price it together, and then understand what that means for them monetizing it moving forward as well. So it's not just around of giving them a platform and here's a rate card. It's actually walking through them. What does that build look like? What's that cost to the customer look like? What's that then going to be the margins for them as well? Very important.
And it sounds interesting to me because, I mean, having gone and spoken to a lot of partners myself and people working in the channel as well, this idea that they need to upskill themselves and how
Mhm.
to sell AI, not just what it means for their customers, but how their customers should use it. And then once they've done all of that work, there's still the question of how much is this going to cost a month? How much
Yep.
is it going to cost your customers each month? And then obviously how you justify that cost with them.
So I think just to kind of bolt on to that, again, absolutely right, and where you position that Finbar, a lot of the channel partners from the traditional perspective, the ones that have been around for many a year, and looking at where that AI move comes into it, and then around the agentic move, and what does that mean for them? I mean, again, speaking from personal experience, we spoke to a few at the Cavell event previously. We speak to a number of those as I'm out and about on a regular basis anyway. But what we're offering from Dialpad as part of our NFR program is actually to bolt agentic in with that platform, so they can actually play about with it in-house in their own system, promote that from themselves to get used to how it operates themselves. Again, making it easier for them, therefore, to have those conversations around what does it look like, how does it operate, what can I do with it moving forward.
I would add to that, Finbar. We talk a lot of times about the agentic era. This is the new thing. The train's just coming into the station. There's plenty of time to get on. We believe Dialpad is a leader in that space, especially from that platform perspective. And when you think about the value of the partner in the agentic era, it is now to the point where a lot of customers that our partners go into aren't hearing about AI. They're hearing about agentic. They don't necessarily have those skill sets in-house to be able to deliver it. They're looking to the partners, they're looking to the vendors to be the subject matter experts inside of that. And when a partner gets trained on how do I build it? How do I deliver it? How do I support it after the fact from a vendor that I know and trust and a partner that I know and trust? All of a sudden, the conversation shifts to the partner being one of the most valuable members in the room to talk about what the AI strategy is. Because now it's an opportunity not just for implementation, for overall support, but there's also a managed services arm to this that allows partners to be constantly in the equation. Ross touched on it earlier. We one of the unique features, the dial pad, and what we lead with in our conversations is a tool's called Skill Builder. Skill Builder says when just take a normal contact center business, the skills builder will actually go out and predict here's what your customers are calling about, here's what could be handled from an agentic perspective on the front end of that conversation before it ultimately becomes, whether it's an issue, whether it's a problem, or whether it's an opportunity. That skills builder will recommend to the end customer, to the partner, what workflow should be put in place to make for a better customer experience. Well, the partners who get out in front of this, the partners who lead those conversations, you're going to be doing monthly, quarterly review sessions to enhance the end user's customer experience. So that quarterly engagement is going to be a really valuable tool for our partners to continue to get in front of their customers and be the subject matter experts in that conversation.
I think that's a really interesting point that I would like to just unpack for a bit, because I think one of the things that the channel maybe hasn't realized yet about this new era of agentic, of AI, is that it creates an interesting. I mean, channel partners have always had an ongoing relationship with their customers, right? That's always been the case. But it's a lot of the time it's been a features-led discussion. I need more seats. I need this new capability. When can you roll that out? Does the platform I want offer it? But actually, what we end up talking about is, the second you start adding in consumption of a service, the second you start adding in an ongoing data ingestion, analysis, insights discussion, then you end up with the idea that your platform and your service is something that can be optimized on an ongoing basis to respond to the changing needs of a business. And then we get this interesting challenge to communication service providers, some of whom have been just involved in that lift and shift of how many seats do you want? Okay, the lines are in, they're installed. Okay, you need a little bit of a contact center. Okay, job done. It's sold. Come back to me in 3 years' time, or if you have any problems. But now it's okay, but your system just spat out a load of data about this service, and I think my token usage on that is way too high. How do I and suddenly we have an entirely different motion of engagement, right?
That literally, I think, is the partner equation in this new era. That is the piece that is going to continue to stand at the forefront. And the partners who start leading the way, who are leading those conversations, are going to have a distinct advantage with their customers, because that shifts from exactly what you said, the license, the lift and shift approach, to being truly consultative into their business every day. And that's why we're putting so much emphasis on the training. Let's show you how to do it. Let's tell you how to build the SOWs. Let's have you invest in people who are going to be able to implement and then support it from moving forward. And you're exactly right. That's where we're going, and that's what we're most excited about.
Mm, absolutely. I always like to sort of begin to think about, when I wrap up the podcast, the future. There's what we're doing now. There's your new platform. There's your new reseller program. There's all of this agentic stuff and these new skills and things you have to learn. But if we're thinking that you're a channel partner, or you're a reseller now, and you're looking at your team and you're thinking, okay, in 2 or 3 years' time, what does my team need to look like? What skills do I need to have? What do I need to build now to prepare for then? So I guess a question to both of you is that, if you're speaking to that audience, what are you telling them to get ready? What are you telling them to invest in or build or, plan for in?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And I think the entire industry, you can watch a YouTube video, you can listen to another podcast about AI, and you're always going to hear the same thing. Get engaged now, start learning these tools now, because there's some stats out there that are really interesting about AI. Probably all of us on the call and everybody listening is leveraging AI in some capacity, in some way, to facilitate something inside of their own job, to make their life easier, to ask a different question, to enhance what their learning and capabilities are. But we all know that we have to, in this new era, we have to be better. We have to be better about how we use AI, invest in the tool, and leverage the tool. I think the more that we're using even the generational AI platforms inside of our own businesses are going to help pave the way for those conversations of what we're evolving to in agentic. Because no matter what anyone wants to think or say about where AI sits, it's just like every other disruptive technology that's been out in the space. We have to learn how to leverage it, use it, and ultimately those conversations are what's going to become the new expectations for any customer or any partner that's out there of what agentic AI workflows, and even beyond that, to what we don't know today is ultimately going to come.
So really, you're saying this is becoming common parlance, this is becoming a table stakes understanding, and you have to make sure that you are getting on board with that level of knowledge, because this is going to become the new floor of the industry. Ross, do you want to add to that, or maybe take us in a different direction? What are you thinking that people need to work on?
I think it's very hard to follow that, Jim. To be fair, he's encapsulated that quite a lot. But I mean, for me, I would very much agree. Take it in house, get used to using it. That will build up the experiences, especially for the channel partners when they become that subject matter expert. But also look to start small. Don't go in and kind of just kind of blow the doors off with what you're trying to take on board for yourselves or for your end customers, because there still is that understanding piece that we need to get in point around, even from what the channel, the vendor, and the end customer are actually looking to try and to achieve. If you start off small and move forward, you'll actually have better results. But ultimately, as Jim said, it's embraced the technology. It's one of those points in time. All three of us on this call have been around the proverbial block, shall we say, for a while. This is one where we definitely have to embrace it, and embrace it now.
There you go. That's the takeaway. I mean, so this has been a really great episode. I mean, just to recap a little bit, we started talking about the transition now where a lot of communications providers are moving towards CX. They're moving into AI. The idea that there's a new baseline of the industry where, all these products are going to have Agentic. They're going to have AI baked in. And if you're a person working in that channel, you need to start to understand and talk that language, because it's going to get built into the products that you use. And if you're not up on how to maintain it, optimize it, price it, get it going, your competitors will be. So you need to maintain that advantage. We talked about Agentic, what it means, building a system that can take information, do actions that would have previously been done by a human being, build up those capabilities and then learn. We talked about the new Dialpad reseller program and how they're going to teach you and help you get on board with that AI journey. So if you're interested in that, please do reach out to Jim, reach out to Ross. If you can't find their contact details, I guarantee you can find mine. So reach out to me and I'll connect you. And otherwise, just a really interesting discussion about this Agentic era and how we have to get on board with the changes that are happening. So thank you both for joining me. I think this has been really interesting chat. If you have any follow-up questions, as always, just comment on LinkedIn, send me an email, we'll reach out and we'll have another conversation about what all this means. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Ross.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Brilliant.